Chapter 111. Although Gao Xiong and the others robbed at sea and obtained quite a bit of gold and silver, who would bring copper onto the ship? Now that we have obtained so much copper, we can solve their problem. This is something that no amount of silver can solve. Yang Chendong's explanation and reply allowed Xiao Yin to understand. She immediately said happily, "So you're saying that we've profited this time?" "Of course we've profited." Yang Chendong also smiled and nodded. In his heart, he thought that if it wasn't for the fact that Sherpu and the others couldn't see the importance of copper, they wouldn't have succeeded so easily this time. Sherpu had made a trip to the Yang clan manor and then transported quite a bit of copper to exchange for ready-made fireplaces. For a moment, this had alleviated the officials' need for fireplaces and received praise from the officials. This had also improved Yang Chendong's reputation among the officials. Before this, there were still a few officials who had installed fireplaces in advance, such as the direct relatives of the Yang clan and the Hu clan. In the Hu clan, no matter how cold it was outside, it was like spring all year round in here. Naturally, this was all thanks to the installation of the fireplaces. We're all thanks to young Mississippi. In the bedroom, Xiaoqing, who was still wearing her summer clothes, giggled as she looked at young Miss Hu Yen who was dressing up in front of the dressing table. Her eyes narrowed into slits as she smiled. "Xiaoqing, you're asking for a beating." Hearing the maidservant teasing her, Hu Yen, whose face was slightly red, turned around and raised her arm as if to hit Xiaoqing. Xiaoqing had already jumped far away and was still giggling as she said, "Young Miss still won't admit it? Look at those important officials who haven't installed a fireplace. Even those Duke's Manners who spent a lot of money still have to wait in line. Yet, our Hu clan didn't do anything and installed everything that should be installed. Also, the mirror in young Mrs. room, the perfume, the glass on the window, which one of them isn't priceless and is limited in supply? Yet you can see them all here. What does the East Marshal want? Everyone in the capital knows, so how could young Miss not know?" Knowing that she wouldn't be able to hit Xiaoqing, Hu Yen simply returned to her chair. She shook her unkempt hair and said, "You all know, but why hasn't he come to propose marriage? It's going to be the new year soon, and I'll be 17 years old." So young Miss was looking forward to a marriage proposal. You really don't know shame. After little Qing heard this, she skipped over again. "All right, little Qing, I'm talking business with you. You said that he treats me so well, and the whole family can see it, but why didn't he ask for my hand in marriage? What is he waiting for?" Hu Yen said with a bitter smile. Many 16-year-old girls were already married. However, Yang Chendong didn't even propose marriage, which made her a little uncertain. "I don't know." Once they started talking about serious matters, little Qing regained her serious look and shook her head vigorously. However, she quickly nodded and said, "If we don't know, we can find someone to ask. Isn't young Miss often in contact with big sister Yang? Why don't we find an opportunity to ask her and let her ask her brother? It shouldn't be a problem, right?" Hu Yen nodded, thinking that little Qing's idea was not bad. In her mind, she began to think of a time to go to the Wangfu and see Yang family's eldest sister, Yang Fei, to sound her out. 1449, the first month of the 14th year of the Zhengtong dynasty. Within Chichen City. With the agreement of Gao Xiong, Leng Song, and a bunch of military officers, instructors and political instructors, the attack on Lukang began. They used 2 months to get a clear understanding of the situation in Lukang and Taichung. Coincidentally, the shipyard had developed a new generation of fast ships, and they had officially tested it, proving its superiority. When the Navy and land forces announced that they would attack Lukang at dawn tomorrow, they would occupy it by land and sea, and then take down Taichung. In order to ensure the success of this operation and to reduce their own casualties and losses. For this battle, they would use the new ships number 1, number 2, and number 3 as the vanguard, led by Gao Xiong himself. There were 4 new ships. Number 4 went to South America and North America to search for rubber trees, and there were 100 ships of different sizes. There were 100 ships of other models, carrying 3 regular Navy companies and 2,000 auxiliary Navy soldiers. The moment they appeared, they would appear on Lukang with lightning speed and catch the enemy off guard. On land, Lung Song personally led the troops, using 3 regular army companies and 2,000 auxiliary army soldiers. After taking down Lukong, they went straight for Taichung and took over half of Ryukyu Island. Before this, a total of 3 exercises had been conducted, and any problems that might arise had been properly resolved. Filled with confidence, a total of 4,600 soldiers ate dinner and rested for 4 hours before the army set off. They slowly approached Port Deer without making a single sound. On the ocean, the moonlight shone, and the ripples were like a mirror that had been split into hundreds of pieces, reflecting huge shadows. New Number 1, New Number 2, and New Number 3, which had just been completed by the shipyard, were 3 large and fast ships. Faintly, they appeared in the ocean 20 miles away from Deer Port. Behind him, there were hundreds of horse ships, grain ships, warships, and warships of all kinds. Gao Xiong, who was leading the team, stood in the command cabin of the New Number 1 ship. When he looked up, a dark cloud happened to appear, blocking the bright moonlight. He was the one who issued a clear and loud order. "Let's go!" Just as the order was given, the sound of the ship's engines starting could be heard. Back then, the ships relied on human power to move the sails when there was wind, but the oars when there was no wind. The biggest difference between the new ships and them was that they had internal combustion engines, usually diesel engines, that were connected by shafts and had propellers that spun. The propellers would stir the water, and the water would give a reaction force that would be transmitted to the ship through the shafts and diesel engines, pushing the ship forward. This way, not only could they save a lot of manpower and resources, but more importantly, they were extremely fast. It was only a distance of 20 miles, but they arrived at Deer Harbor in less than 15 minutes. They had never thought that someone would come looking for trouble from the sea. At this moment, the gates were wide open, like an unguarded city that never sleeps. It wasn't until the Number 1, Number 2, and Number 3 warships lined up in a straight line and prepared their Type 90-60mm mortars to fire that the warships belonging to the first Shang dynasty in Deer Port finally came to their senses. In the dark night, it was impossible to see how many enemy ships were there. However, once they discovered the enemy, the 300-odd warships in the harbor were about to retaliate. When the alarm sounded, countless sailors ran out from the military camp on land. From the looks of it, they were about to board the ship to face the enemy. In the harbor, there were more than 10 warships from the first Shang dynasty that were stationed there all year round. They were about to turn and face the enemy. Attack! If anyone dares to retaliate, sink them all. In the command cabin, Gao Xiong issued orders as he stared intently at Deer Harbor for any signs of movement. Boom, boom, boom. Following the order, the Number 1, Number 2, and Number 3 cannons on the Number 1, Number 2, and Number 3 ships started firing at the moving enemy ships. The powerful flames were like the brightest beacon in the dark night, instantly lighting up half of Lukong. At the same time, a few moving warships from the first Shang dynasty were hit and destroyed. The powerful modern cannons had an unimaginable attack power. No matter what kind of ship it was, as long as it was hit by the cannons, it would immediately shatter into pieces. There would only be the sound of people screaming and not the slightest bit of resistance. 3 cannons at a time. After 3 consecutive rounds, the precision of the cannons made the first Shang dynasty's warships that were moving like snails into fixed targets. The only thing they could do was to become the target of the cannons and wait for the cannons to hit them. The flames soared into the sky and the sound of people screaming spread out, causing the sailors on land who wanted to board the ships to stop in their tracks in fear. Who is it? How could their firearms be so powerful? If we charge onto the ships now, how is that different from seeking death? The sailors didn't dare to act rashly. After all, no one was an idiot. No one would dare to charge forward even if they knew that they would die. In the command room of Number 1, Gao Xiong was looking at the scene in front of him proudly. He didn't give the order to fire the cannons as he was following Yang Chendong's orders. There were too many Han people on Ryukyu Island and it was best not to kill people of his own race. Furthermore, the 9 cannons were enough to cause the enemy to panic. His ambush mission was already more than half completed. Now, he just had to wait for the other ships to catch up. Then, it would be time for the army to press forward and seize the ships and captives. Using the fact that the ships behind were too slow and didn't have enough space to catch up, Gao Xiong turned his head and looked at Wuxia and Xianxia, who were staring at him in disbelief. "Two sirs? In your opinion, how is the strength of our navy?" "Amazing. Inconceivable, simply inconceivable. Wherever the cannons go, who can fight against them?" Xianxu's face was full of shock as he sighed. Even Yu Qian, an important minister recorded in the history of the Ming dynasty, a man who had once single-handedly reversed the history of the Ming dynasty, didn't have a trace of calmness at this moment. His eyes were also wide open as he stared at the scene in front of him. In fact, what Yu Qian saw was too many things that could surprise him. Ever since he was captured and transported to Qiqian City, he felt that everything he saw was like a dream. The spacious cement roads in the city, the orderly streets, the lush green trees, the rosy complexions of the people who were happy every day, and the new army that always maintained a high spirit. All of this was something he didn't even dare to dream about. Chapter 112. Everyone had something to do and money to earn. Regardless of their birth, as long as one of their parents was Han, they would be able to receive a good education from a young age. When people fell sick, they would have money to treat them, and the greatest guarantee was the possibility of dying from illness. There were 3 meals a day, not 2. Not only that, they could eat meat for every meal, and everyone had new clothes to wear. This seemed to be something that only humans could dream of, right? But right now, all of this was happening in Crimson City. Those bright windows were something that even the great Ming Imperial Palace didn't have the money to install, but it was extremely common here. There were also power plants, munitions factories, furniture factories, garment factories, cement factories, shipyards, glass factories, paper factories, and so on that he had never heard of before. Wherever he went, he was shocked, and it was the kind of shock that went straight to the bottom of his heart. If it wasn't for Crimson City, he wouldn't have known that the world could be so beautiful. After 2 months of visiting, Yu Qian finally found out that this was the property of Yang Shima, who didn't have a high position in the capital and didn't have much authority. Everything here was made by this person. This place was even more prosperous than the capital and Nanjing, and it was actually the private property of the 6th young master of the Yang clan. Then what was he trying to do? Yu Qian couldn't understand, or rather, he didn't dare to think about it. But after witnessing the naval battle of Deer Harbor tonight, he finally realized that his suspicions were about to come true. As an official of the Great Ming Dynasty, the first thing he had to do was to spread the news of this place. It would be best if he could let all the officials in the court know about what was happening in Crimson City. But could he escape? And if he really did go out, would anyone believe him if he told them what he saw? Even if someone believed him, with the current military strength of the Ming Dynasty, would they be able to defeat the new army in Crimson City? All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind like a movie. Yu Qian realized that the expansion of Crimson City was unavoidable, and it wasn't something that could be stopped by human strength. Gao Xiong chuckled and proudly looked at the 2 people who were named by the 6th young master to take special care of. From his point of view, what important officials of the Great Ming Dynasty? At this moment, they had probably been blinded by everything in front of them and were scared out of their wits. On the land of Deer Harbor, thousands of sailors stood there, not daring to move. The flames in front of them seemed to be a warning to them. If they dared to step into the warship, they would be smashed into smithereens. Who wouldn't be afraid of death? This was especially so for the first Shang dynasty, who knew that they would definitely die and couldn't even pay their soldiers. Hesitation could be seen in the eyes of the soldiers. What's going on? Why haven't you boarded yet? What are you waiting for? A loud roar sounded out. Just as the Navy members were hesitating to move forward, a man wearing the first Shang dynasty's military uniform rushed over with his troops. General Pan has come. Some of the sailors had already recognized the identity of the person who had come. Pan Tao, the general guarding Deer Harbor. He was also one of the trusted generals of the first Shang dynasty's 13-year-old king, Shangde. It was because of Pan Tao's existence that Deer Harbor became an impregnable pass. It became the biggest barrier between Chichen City and the first Shang dynasty. Pan Tao also heard the commotion outside and brought thousands of troops over. From afar, he first saw the flames that soared into the sky. Following that, he saw the thousands of sailors standing together on the shore in a mess. Seeing that a huge battle was about to happen, all the sailors actually didn't board the warship but stayed on the shore. Instantly, he was furious. Just as he got closer, a loud roar sounded out. The sailors who were originally hesitating were all frightened when they saw Pan Tao bringing his troops over. They started to walk towards the warship that was anchored at the harbor. This Pan Tao was famous for killing people without blinking. If they stayed here, they would be killed by this person before they could be killed by the powerful cannons. Since they were going to die no matter what, they might as well try their luck on the warship. Over 300 warships, even if only a third of them managed to make it out, it would still be a bloody battle for the Yang family navy. Even if they had advanced weapons, casualties would still be unavoidable. The situation of the battle seemed to be changing. At this moment, the Yang family army that was already prepared on land began to move. Sniper rifle, can you find Pan Tao's exact location? Lung Song, who was hiding 800 meters away from Deer Harbor, used the night vision binoculars in his hands to see everything that was happening. When he realized that Pan Tao's appearance could cause chaos in the battle and increase the difficulty of taking over Deer Harbor, he asked the sniper beside him who was skilled in shooting. Reporting to battalion commander, there are too many people and they are too densely packed. We can't accurately hit the target. The sniper shook his head dejectedly. Was it because his shooting skills were bad? It wasn't that his observation skills weren't good enough or that the range of the sniper rifle wasn't good enough. It was just that there were too many people, densely packed and extremely chaotic. It wasn't realistic to want to take Pan Tao's life with one shot. Hearing that the sniper couldn't complete his mission successfully, a sharp glint flashed across Lung Song's eyes. He seemed to have made up his mind as he said, "Rocket launchers, get ready. Everyone move forward. When you have enough range, fire indiscriminately." Originally, he only wanted to take Pan Tao's life. However, the scouts found out that this person was entrusted with an important task by the first Shang dynasty's king, Shangde. It was impossible for him to surrender. Since that was the case, he could only kill him. Although this person was also a descendant of the Han people, if he died, more Han people would submit to him. No matter how he looked at it, it was worth it. However, the situation didn't allow it. He could only let Lung Song kill more people. War had always been cruel and there was no right or wrong. This was because history was written by the victors. Lung Song gave the order, and the 3 companies of 300 outstanding Cold Vanguard soldiers moved forward with him. Behind them were 2,000 auxiliary soldiers. Even though they were auxiliary soldiers, their movements were still nimble. Even though they were following behind the main soldiers, they weren't too far behind. On Deerport, because of Pan Tao's appearance, there were Navy members who were walking towards their ships. However, no matter how you looked at it, these people's speed wasn't fast enough. They were like crawling snails. All of you hurry up. Whoever is behind will be punished for disobeying orders. Behead. Seeing that this was going to continue, who knew how long it would take for them to form enough resistance on the sea? Pan Tao roared angrily. As expected, the moment the order was given, the Navy members' movements became much faster. In the new command cabin, Gao Xiong was observing everything through his binoculars. When he saw more enemies boarding the ships, he couldn't help but say anxiously, "This Lung Song, what is he doing? Why isn't he launching a land attack? Forget it, forget it. Order the cannons to extend and fire at the enemies boarding the ships." Boom boom boom. The 3 new ships fired 3 cannons as planned, hitting the intersection of the waterways in Deerport. The powerful shockwave from the explosion instantly took away at least 100 lives. The number of injured people who were hit by the shockwave was uncountable. After the 3 cannons were fired, Lung Song led the army to the left side of the enemy 200 meters away. Immediately, 5 rocket launchers fired at the same time, launching an indiscriminate attack. Wherever General Pan Tao was suspected to be, he became the focus of the firepower. Boom 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 boom. After the 5 consecutive shots, Under the powerful firepower, a large number of enemies fell to the ground. Waves of cries and howls could be heard. Countless broken limbs were scattered everywhere. Advance in attack formation. Anyone who doesn't surrender, kill. Lung Song saw that the first wave of rocket launchers had caused heavy damage to the enemy. He was the first to stand up from the ground. Following him, the 300 soldiers of the Lung army marched forward in a straight line, maintaining a complete formation. Yang Chendong had taught them before that if they could attack, they shouldn't defend. He also said that attacking was the best defense and also the last resort to solve all problems. Following this order, and to reduce the number of casualties, Lung Song decided not to attack. Once they attacked, they had to hurt the enemy until they didn't know which direction was north, south, east, and west. Only then would they choose to surrender faster. The 300 soldiers of the Lung army spat out tongues of fire from their guns. In the darkness, they were like an unbreakable fire net as they closed in step by step. Behind them, the 2,000 auxiliary soldiers wielding large swords and spears weren't idle either. Although they couldn't walk in front with spears because of their status, they still shouted in unison, "Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed." In the chaos of the cannons, the place where Pan Tao was, it became the focus of the attack. After losing contact with the general, facing the continuous barrage of fire, those who wanted to attack with swords were shot and fell to the ground, not moving at all. Under such a strong pressure, the Shang dynasty soldiers guarding Deer Port were forced to retreat. Countless times, reality told them that those who wanted to charge with weapons would inevitably die. In such a situation where they would die if they charged forward, no one could muster up the courage to charge forward. Just as the army was advancing with an unstoppable momentum, the Yang family navy finally arrived. Under the primitive speed of the boat, which only relied on the sails and the rowers, the distance of 20 miles took them nearly 2 incense sticks of time longer than the other boats. But no matter what, they still managed to arrive. Then, it was the arrival of the army. The huge commotion had already created a psychological pressure on the soldiers of Deer Port. Those who kneel and surrender will not be killed. With their arrival, the city gates opened from the inside. This was the work of the infiltration team. The city gates opened and without much effort, the army entered the city. Following that, they quickly took control of the important officials of the first Shang dynasty and the 4 city gates. As for the less than 500 guards in the city, they were either killed or surrendered. There was no third option. They took control of the entire Taichung city in an instant. This was the well-trained Lung Feng. They did not harm a single person, nor did they steal anything from the citizens. The next morning, when some brave citizens pushed open their doors and walked out onto the streets, they realized that there were many tall, fit, and energetic young soldiers. They were different from the original city guards. They were courteous and did not offend the people. When some people fell on the street out of fear of seeing them, these patrolling and maintaining law and order soldiers would stop and help them up. They were as amiable as big brothers who had been neighbors for many years. The actions of the auxiliary soldiers eventually influenced the citizens in the city. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and more citizens walked out of their homes. Taichung City was as before. With lightning speed, they took down Deer Harbor in a single night. Under the rapid march, they took down Taichung City without shedding a drop of blood. This caused the situation on Wuxia Island to change drastically. Originally, with Crimson Castle as the base, it only took up 1/8 of the entire Wuxia Island. However, after taking down Qishan, Alishan, Yushan, Lukang, and Taichung, they had taken over at least 2/3 of the island. The remaining 1/3 was where the first Shang dynasty's capital was located, which was the central north region. However, it was also the most densely populated place on Wuxia Island. In the Battle of Deer Harbor and Taichung, they killed more than 1,000 enemies and captured more than 11,000 people. This greatly increased the population of the Yang clan, allowing them to reach a population of 400,000. Including the auxiliary soldiers, they had close to 10,000 people. They took over 300 ships and more than 5,000 sailors. This battle greatly increased the strength of the Yang clan. At the same time, it allowed them to become the strongest faction on Ryukyu Island. The Battle of Deer Harbor was a battle where they won with a small number of people. At the same time, it also proved that quality was more important than quantity. However, at this time, whether it was Gao Xiong or Leng Song, they didn't want to expand their gains and enter the central region. Under the rapid development, the Yang clan needed to stabilize and digest. They didn't want to continue swallowing. Otherwise, there might be internal chaos. Yang Chendong once said that battles had to be fought one by one and cities had to be conquered one by one. One shouldn't only think about conquering territory and neglect internal development. If that happened, the quality of life of the people would deteriorate. If that happened, the building might collapse at any time. What the new army needed now was to digest everything that they had just obtained. This might take half a year or even longer. These people needed to redistribute the land, learn new things, learn how to be hygienic and polite, and completely integrate into the Yang clan system. In half a year, they would only learn the surface. Fortunately, both the new army and Yang Chendong, who was their leader, were young enough. They still had time to develop everything. Moreover, they could use this time to negotiate with the first Shang dynasty and see if there was any hope of peacefully taking over the central region and reducing the killing. Negotiation. This was one of the Yang clan's methods, a way to stall for time. They needed to digest their gains. Negotiation. This was indeed the only way for the first Shang dynasty to resolve the current crisis. After Leng Song expressed his willingness to negotiate, the other party's diplomatic group arrived. They were extremely humble and directly expressed their intention to submit. They expressed that they were willing to become a vassal state and were willing to pay tribute every year. However, they also stated their request, which was to ensure the existence of autonomy. With Taichung as the dividing line, the northern region would belong to the first Shang dynasty and the southern region would belong to the Yang clan. Such an outcome was clearly not in line with Yang Chendong's previous plans. He wanted to fully occupy Little Ryukyu Island. Since they couldn't come to an agreement, they could talk slowly. Once the new army digested their gains, they could start another war and completely solve the problem of Little Ryukyu Island. Yang Chendong's forces were developing rapidly. In the capital, he was quietly preparing for the new year in the Yang clan manner. 1449, the 14th year of the Zhengzhou dynasty. This year would be recorded in the annals of history. If everything went as expected, the famous Tuma Fortress incident would occur this year, signifying the beginning of the Ming dynasty's decline. In truth, from the moment he entered the capital, Yang Chendong had been thinking about his next move. He already knew what was going to happen. With Yang Chendong's abilities, he was completely capable of changing history and nipping in the bud. But he had never done so. In fact, he had only been using his troops on Little Ryukyu Island. In the Great Ming, he had only been developing commerce and establishing Yongbao and the Immortal abode. He was afraid that if he made too big of a move, it would affect the course of history. In the current Ming dynasty, eunuchs were in power, causing all the ministers to feel insecure. Treacherous officials were in power, and even the position of eunuch was hereditary. If this continued, something would happen to the Great Ming sooner or later, and the only ones to suffer would be the common people. As a Han, Yang Chendong naturally didn't want to see his compatriots suffer. What he wanted was to see the Han grow stronger and become the rulers of the world. For this goal, the hundreds of thousands of Han brothers in the Tuma Fortress incident could only become sacrificial lambs. With a sigh, Yang Chendong thought about how many loyal officials and generals would die in the Tuma Fortress incident. This was a loss for the Great Ming, a loss for the country. But when he thought about how he couldn't do anything with his current status and influence, even if he mobilized the Chizian army, he might draw the ire of the imperial court and the tolerance of the Walla. After all, to resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify internal affairs. Young master, big sister is here. Yang Chendong sighed in his study when he saw Qiaoyin enter with a smile. Big sister is here? Hearing that Yang Fei was here, Yang Chendong immediately got up and went out to welcome her. Among his brothers and sisters, he had the deepest feelings for his big sister, and he respected her the most. Other than the fact that she had raised him when he was young, it was also because Yang Fei gave him the feeling that she was like a mother. In the main hall of the Yang family manor, Yang Fei sat on a chair and tasted tea. Behind her stood 2 personal maids. Thinking back, when Yang Fei got married, the Yang family was at the peak of its power, so she naturally married into a good family. At that time, the Wang family was also a large family. Now, big sister's husband, Wang Meng, had become a rank 5 official at the Ministry of Rights in his early 40s. Wang Meng was a scholarly person, and he treated Yang Fei with respect. The two of them had always lived in harmony. Yang Fei was knowledgeable and had the style of a noble mother. The entire Wang family was managed by her in an orderly manner, and she had been praised by many people. Chapter 114. Just looking at Yang Fei, her life was pretty good and she should be satisfied. But because of her younger brothers and sisters, she had no choice but to worry about them. Sometimes she would even think of ways to help them financially. Over the years, her body was not as good as before. Fortunately, Yang Chendong entered the capital. His appearance changed the situation of the descendants of the Yang family. This made Yang Fei feel that the pressure on her was reduced by a lot. As for her other sisters, they could get 1,000 taels of silver from Yang Chendong every month. After having money, her position in her husband's family naturally rose. In addition, it was rumored that the 6th young master of the Yang family had a good relationship with eunuch Wang Zhen. This made them even more afraid to make things difficult for the Yang family. Suddenly, Yang Fei did not need to worry about her sisters and felt that she had nothing to do. Not long ago, the daughter of the Hu family, Hu Yan, came looking for her. Although she did not say anything and only gave a simple greeting, Yang Fei knew what she was thinking. Thinking that her little brother would be 19 years old after the new year, it was time to settle the problem of marriage. Thus, she came looking for her before the new year. Big sister. Still wearing his green clothes, Yang Chendong appeared with a smile. He did not know why, but in front of Yang Fei, he could always put down the burden on his body and become relaxed. Is big sister's body much better? I still have a few anti-inflammatory medicines here. When big sister leaves, bring them back. If you have any headache or fever, you can use them at your discretion. Good, big sister's body is already fine. I have troubled little brother. Yang Fei's face was full of smiles. Her eyes were filled with satisfaction and happiness. Originally, she thought that the few young master of the Yang family did not live up to expectations and that the Yang family would decline from now on. She never thought that Yang Chendong, who did not speak much when he was young, would suddenly change greatly after he grew up and become so talented. This was an unexpected surprise and also let Yang Fei see the hope of the Yang family rising again. Hee, you are my big sister. It is natural for little brother to care about you. Regarding Yang Chendong calling him little brother, this special title, not only did Yang Chendong not object, he even felt at ease. He felt that this was a kind of intimacy. Of course, if it was someone else who called him little brother, he would probably be the first to object. Even if his second brother called him little six, he would get angry. That's right, you still know that I'm your big sister? Since little brother is so concerned about big sister should also be concerned about little brother. Tell me, what do you think of the Hu family's Hu Yan? Yang Chendong's face suddenly became much more serious as she stared at Yang Chendong with bright eyes. Hearing that big sister was actually doing this for Hu Yan, Yang Chendong coughed lightly and said somewhat awkwardly, "Big sister, little brother is still young. I don't want to. I have no choice but to do so. Let me tell you, this time, don't play dumb with me. You have to give big sister a clear attitude. Is it okay or not? If it's okay, I will immediately send someone to the Hu family to propose marriage. If it's not okay, you have to tell them so that they don't get in the way." Yang Fei stared at Yang Chendong for an answer. The reason why she was so serious was probably because whenever she mentioned this matter in the past, Yang Chendong would change the topic, causing her to not know where the topic went every time. Today, she had made sufficient preparations. If she didn't get an answer, she definitely wouldn't give up. Big Sister's eyes stared closely at Yang Chendong, causing him to feel even more awkward. For a moment he didn't know what to say. He only scratched his head and said, "Little brother thinks that this matter really doesn't need to be too anxious." Yang Chendong, who had always been calm in the face of trouble and gave others the feeling that he was always successful and ignorant, was indeed at a loss like a child right now. This appearance directly caused Xiaoyin, who was beside him, to cover her mouth and laugh softly. Not only that, the two personal maids following behind Yang Fei also had smiles on their faces. Clearly, they also rarely saw the sixth young master, who had always been calm and collected, reveal such a childish appearance. Big Sister Yang Chendong, on the other hand, couldn't help but sigh softly when she saw Yang Chendong in such a difficult position. "Little brother, you might think that Big Sister is a little overbearing, but think about it. Hu Yen has always stayed in the word pavilion for you. Now, she will be 17 after the new year. During this time, who knows how many nobles have come to propose marriage, but they were all rejected. She is waiting for you. Then, even if you think that you are still young, you have to give her an explanation. You can't just wait bitterly like this. What is going on?" She wanted Yang Chendong to be responsible for her. If he couldn't bear this responsibility, then he had to tell her and let her prepare early. At the very least, he couldn't delay her. Yang Chendong knew that Yang Fei's words were very reasonable. He immediately replied, "Yes, Big Sister is right. How about this? I will propose marriage to the Hu clan at the end of this year." Taking a deep breath, Yang Chendong made his decision. This wasn't just because Yang Chendong knew that Hu Yen liked him. In fact, he also liked this playful and cute girl very much. In addition, her background was the granddaughter of the Minister of Rights, Hu Shao. She was definitely a descendant of a prestigious family. Marrying such a girl would also be helpful for him when he wanted to leave in the future. This was equivalent to him finding a strong ally in the imperial court. Yang Chendong finally gave an answer. Yang Fei let out a long sigh of relief. "Okay, little brother, this is what you said. I will reply to the Hu clan like this. When the time comes, you can't go back on your words." "I won't go back on my words. I won't go back on my words." Yang Chendong shook his head and smiled bitterly. He really didn't expect that his first marriage in 2 lifetimes would be completed under pressure. Of course, this was also his own choice. If he didn't want to, then in this world, there really wasn't anyone who could make things difficult for him. Seeing that the young master had finally decided on his marriage, Xiao Yin was also happy. Although she was already the young master's bed-warming servant girl and had even done the deed of husband and wife, she was very clear in her heart that with her background, being able to reach this step was already very difficult. Wanting to become the main wife, this was simply impossible in the society of that time. Fortunately, she had interacted with Hu Yen before. This girl was kind-hearted and should be easy to get along with. Finally deciding on marriage, when the news spread back to the Hu clan, Hu Yen was naturally full of joy. Although she still had to wait for nearly a year, she was willing to endure it. In her opinion, she was destined to be the Dong Shuai's bride. As for the night, it wasn't a big deal. The clan head was getting married at the end of the year. When the news spread throughout the Yang clan manor, all of the villagers were extremely happy. Ever since the patriarch came to the Yang village, the villagers' lives were getting better day by day. Today, during the new year, each family was given 20 caddies of meat and 2 taels of silver. This kind of treatment was something that even their ancestors had never experienced before. For a moment, everyone was overjoyed. The bells of the new year rang out, and the capital fell into a celebratory mood. The Immortal abode didn't require any seats. Every day, several thousand people came in, and money poured in. The novel programs and moving music made everyone who entered applaud. Naturally, this place became a popular place for wealthy guests. Just the number of people who applied for membership cards increased by several times. The total number of people who applied for 3 types of membership added up to 3,000. Just the sheer number of members made it so that if one wanted to spend money in the Immortal abode, they had to make a reservation in advance. This made the business even more explosive. A large amount of money flowed into Yang Chendong's hands, causing others to gnash their teeth in anger. Some of the restaurants in the area and even some of the red light district's businesses were greatly affected. With new music to listen to, who would want to listen to old songs that had been memorized countless times? The popularity of the immortal abode naturally drew the envy of many, but compared to the profits of the sky beyond heaven, it paled in comparison. The sky beyond heaven silently opened for business 3 days after the immortal abode opened for business. Because of the novelty of its products, it instantly became popular. This was especially true after the immortal abode introduced a limited supply system. Many merchants had no choice but to squeeze their way in. Putting aside the other products, only 500 large bags of toilet paper were sold each day, for a total of 5,000 small bags. This was simply not enough to satisfy the needs of the high officials and nobles of the capital, and this wasn't even taking into account the many wealthy merchants of lower status who still had plenty of money in their pockets. After getting used to this soft paper, who would want to replace it with anything else? Even though a large bag of toilet paper sold for the astronomical price of 2 taels of silver, it was still sold out every morning when the store opened for business. Just this alone made a profit of 2,000 taels of silver, but in reality, even with the cost of transportation, it didn't even make 10 taels of silver. This was an almost invisible cost. Just the unremarkable toilet paper alone could make 2,000 taels of silver a day. That was more than 50,000 taels of silver a month. From this, one could see just how lucrative the profits were. There was also a perfume that no one had ever seen before. Not to mention anything else, just the beautiful glass bottle that was used to package the perfume was worth quite a lot. Only 100 bottles were sold every day, but each bottle was sold at a price of 50 taels. It was enough for the young ladies of the rich families to snatch it up in an instant. In this way, they could make another 100,000 taels of silver a month. There was no need to mention all these things one by one. The popularity of the sky beyond heaven was mainly due to the novelty of its products. Even when other merchants saw them, they felt as if they couldn't touch them. The limited supply of goods made it impossible for them to store large quantities of goods. What if they couldn't even meet the demand in the capital? How could they possibly sell these goods elsewhere? Businessmen were all profit-seeking. For their own interests, they had looked for Yang Fu more than once. This was the spokesperson of Dong Shuai in the business world. They expressed that they hoped to get more goods. They even said that they did not care about the price, as long as there were goods for them to sell. After all, no matter how expensive it would still have to be sold at a higher price. Chapter 115. After consulting Yang Chendong on this matter, Yang Fu expressed that the Dong Shuai, in order to ensure that the common people of the Great Ming could enjoy the benefits of these high-class goods, decided to provide a certain amount of goods to the merchants. As for the quantity, it could be twice as much as the daily limit in the capital. But there were also conditions. First, the highest bidder would win, and second, the goods could not appear on the market in the capital. This method of bidding was naturally Yang Chendong's idea. He knew that the nature of merchants was to seek profit. As long as they could obtain profit, they wouldn't care about what sort of people they were dealing with. They wouldn't care about the righteousness of the country or etiquette or shame. It was just like how in the later stages of the dynasty, the merchant groups and the power groups would collude, all of them aiming for military provisions and equipment. As a result, the Great Ming's defeat had been caused by internal strife. Since they didn't know any better, he might as well earn some of their money. At the very least, with this money in Yang Chendong's hands, he could guarantee that it would be used for the people of the Great Han. After making up his mind, Yang Chendong had Crimson City provide a large amount of goods, and for the sake of saving costs, he even had these merchants go directly to the Tientsin wharf to pick up the goods. Of course, in principle, the highest bidder would win. This method made the Tientsin wharf much more lively. Many merchants gathered here, and whenever they obtained a batch of goods through bidding, they would immediately head south to sell them. For a moment, the goods of the Yang clan were spread all over the country. Of course, the one who earned the most was still Yang Chendong, and his influence naturally grew. China was a country of connections, and anything could be done through connections. This seemed to have become a law that would never change. In order to obtain even more goods, Many people sought out Yang Chendong through connections, such as his sixth sister, Yang Qin. Before Yang Chendong had come to the capital, Yang Qin had lived a good life, but her status had been very low. This was all because she had married a merchant. Being a third-class merchant meant that she couldn't even compare to the son of a good family. This made it very difficult for her to raise her head in front of her brothers and sisters. With the appearance of Yang Chendong, everything changed. Not only did her most capable sixth brother not look down on her, but he also took good care of her sister. Not only did he give her a monthly salary of 1,000 taels of silver, he also took care of her husband's business quite a bit. It was as if he was taking goods from the Yang family. Other merchants had to bid to obtain the goods, but the Bai family was able to obtain the best quality goods at an internal price from time to time. This allowed their family business to flourish very quickly. Yang Chendong had bestowed this body with the benefits of not forgetting his loved ones when he was rich. Since he had taken over this body, he had to at least treat him well. Otherwise, how was he going to face him after 100 years? Yang Chendong didn't want to do anything wrong, and he didn't want to let down anyone who treated him well. Therefore, as long as he could help, he wouldn't be stingy to the Yang family. In comparison, there were some people who took advantage of him and still wanted to scheme against him. This person was Zhu Qizhen of the Great Ming Dynasty. The popularity of the immortal abode and sky beyond heaven, especially the latter, which could be described as close to 10,000 taels of gold a day, deeply stimulated him, the current emperor. Looking at the annual income of his national treasury, which was only 4 to 5 million taels of silver, he heard that this number could be earned by Yang Chendong in 2 months. This made him envious and jealous at the same time. Slowly, he forgot that Yang Chendong had once brought him high-yield potatoes. He began to think about how to deal with the East Marshal and obtain more benefits. In the inner court of the imperial palace, Zhu Qizhen saw that Empress Qian was doing some needlework out of boredom. She even said that it was for the sake of generating income for the imperial palace. He couldn't suppress his anger. How could a small crown prince wash horses and earn several times more money than him, the emperor? Why would the empress, who was the mother of the world, want to work to earn more money? Wasn't this showing that he, the emperor, was too incompetent? When a person began to have an idea, it was very difficult to take it back. Zhu Qizhen was the same. Ever since he remembered Yang Chendong, he thought about how to use a method to take a large amount of gold and silver from his hands. This caused him to be unable to sleep at night. Although Zhu Qizhen was the emperor, there were too many things in the world that he could not do anything about. For example, the interests of the officials were not something that he could touch as he wished. Ever since Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty dismissed the 100 schools of thought and respected only Confucianism, Confucianism became the orthodox ideology of feudal society. Under this kind of education system, some of the scholars became the upper class and nobles. In order to ensure that their children and grandchildren could also enjoy glory and wealth, they naturally gathered together. Everyone would swarm to oppose any policies and decisions that targeted them. On the contrary, they would fully support any actions that were beneficial to them. As time passed, their power became greater and greater. Even if a dynasty was destroyed, these people could still change schools and continue their glory. One of the most classic examples was the Kong family. A dynasty's legacy was only 300 to 400 years. Even if it was the Xia, Shang, and Zhou dynasties, the strongest dynasty was only the Ji family's 800 years of history. However, a scholar's family was able to continue for 2,000 years. It had to be said that this was a miracle in the history of the world. This was an existence that Zhu Qizhen could not afford to offend. At least, if he wanted to touch these people, he needed a good reason. Yang Chendong was born in the Yang family and could be considered a descendant of a prestigious family. Now that he was a secondary class rank 5 official and was also a high scholar, if he wanted to touch him, he would not be able to convince everyone without a good reason. But what made Zhu Qizhen even more depressed was that his teacher, Wang Lin, actually had a good personal relationship with Yang Chendong. Wang Lin had spoken good words for Yang Chendong in front of him more than once. This made Ying Zong feel that if he told his teacher about his plan to deal with Yang Chendong, it would most likely not work. Since he could not tell anyone, Zhu Qizhen wanted to do it himself. Just as he was thinking of the best way to solve this problem, an opportunity came. His third sister, Princess Changde, was about to celebrate her 14th birthday. Princess Changde was the third daughter of the late Emperor Zhu Zhanji. She and Zhu Qizhen shared the same father and mother as each other and was often called the third princess. Because when she was just born, her father had passed away. Zhu Qizhen, as the older brother, had given his younger sister enough brotherly love. Because of this, she was unruly and willful from a young age, slowly becoming an existence that gave her older brother, the emperor, a headache. Every year, whenever it was Princess Changde's birthday, it was also a time for Zhu Qizhen to be troubled. This younger sister's temper was really bad. If there was anything that did not go her way, she would beat and scold them on the spot. When it was her birthday, it was even more so. If her wishes were not satisfied, not only would the eunuchs and palace maids suffer, even he would not be in a good mood. This once-a-year headache was coming again. While Zhu Qizhen was having a headache, he suddenly thought of Yang Chendong. Didn't you say that you were multi-talented? Didn't others say that you were omnipotent? That's good. This third princess birthday will be in your hands. If it was done well, then it would naturally be a matter of course. On the other hand, if it was not done well, then he would find a legitimate reason to do it. He did not ask for anything to be done to you. You only needed to take out some money and give it to Zhen. If this was the case, then the other ministers would not be able to do anything, right? Could it be that if you did a bad job, then there would be a problem if you just took out some money? With this thought in mind, Zhu Qizhen unexpectedly took the initiative to come to the third princess courtyard for the first time. This made the eunuchs and palace maids who passed by very surprised. They could not understand. What was wrong with the emperor today? Normally, he would not be able to avoid them. Why did he take the initiative to come forward today? Princess Changde was currently swinging on a swing in her courtyard. Several palace maids and eunuchs were still kneeling on the side, tears still flowing from their eyes. Clearly, it was because of the punishment they had just received. The reason for the punishment was even more speechless. It was because these eunuchs and palace maids did not follow her request to swing the swing to a certain height. And this height did not refer to the highest height, but to the exact height of 120 centimeters from the ground. Thinking about it, even if one used a ruler to measure, it would not be able to achieve such precision. But this was Princess Changde's request. If they could not satisfy her request, then they could only be punished. Zhu Qizhen's sudden appearance caused the eunuchs and palace maids in the courtyard to be shocked. At the same time, they all knelt on the ground and shouted, "Long live the emperor!" A figure quickly rushed out from the crowd and arrived in front of Ingzong. She excitedly shouted, "Imperial brother, how come you have time to come see your younger sister today?" Seeing the third princess rushing over, because she ran too fast, she almost fell to the ground. Ingzong instinctively wanted to dodge. This kind of thing had happened countless times. Once Princess Changde fell to the ground, there would be a burst of howling and crying. As the emperor, if he did not bleed, then there would be no way to stop it. After instinctively taking a step back, Yang Chendong's figure suddenly appeared in Zhu Qizhen's mind. Zhu Qizhen's footsteps naturally came to a stop, and he immediately pulled Princess Changde into a tight embrace. Princess Changde hugged Zhu Qizhen tightly and said coquettishly, "Imperial brother, your younger sister is about to turn 14. I know. This time, we came precisely because of Changde's matter. This time, we plan to have Yang Chendong hold a birthday banquet for you. What do you think?" Zhu Qizhen's face was full of smiles as he probed. "Dong Shuai? I've heard of him. Your younger sister has also been to that immortal abode. It's really not bad." A trace of reminiscence appeared in Princess Changde's eyes. She then said happily, "Imperial brother, are you planning to reserve the entire immortal abode?" "Of course not." Zhu Qizhen shook his head. Reserving the entire immortal abode for a princess' birthday? He would not do such a foolish thing. Those imperial censors would definitely stand up and criticize him. Moreover, that was Yang Chendong's home ground. If he wanted to cause trouble, it would be difficult for him to do so. This was not in line with his original intentions. Chapter 116. Seeing Zhu Qizhen shake his head, Princess Shangde was clearly displeased. If I don't go to the immortal abode, do I have to celebrate my birthday in the palace as usual? That would be too boring. Who says that it's boring in the palace? In our opinion, whose idea is more important? Everyone says that Yang Chendong is brimming with talent. If he's the one planning it, it'll be just as exciting, right? Of course, if he doesn't do his best, we'll punish him for his crimes. How about that? Zhu Qizhen laughed heartily, delighted at the good excuse he'd found. Princess Shangde's expression also softened. Good. Imperial brother still loves me dearly. Then let's have him do this. I'd like to see just how he'll make this princess happy. A beautiful smile appeared on her face that was still too young and tender. Princess Shangde was the third princess. She was still very pretty. After all, how could someone who'd managed to become the imperial concubine be lacking in looks? Her children would naturally be handsome and beautiful. However, her temper wasn't too good. She was a bit too domineering. The information about the third princess was quickly sent to the study of the Yang manor and placed on Yang Chendong's desk. This was news sent by Mao Mu. With a large amount of money and his status as a eunuch, Mao Mu already had his own influence in the palace. As for the emperor's sudden appearance in the third princess palace, it naturally didn't escape his eyes. You're going to punish the young master for his crimes? Yang Chendong couldn't help but laugh when he saw the detailed records, including every word Zhu Qizhen had said. Truly, accompanying the monarch was like accompanying a tiger. He'd contributed a high-yield crop like potatoes in exchange for a minor fifth-rank official position. Yang Chendong didn't say anything in response. He'd never intended to stand in the great Ming dynasty's imperial court in the first place. But not only did you not give me a reward, you actually coveted everything I've obtained and wanted to scheme against me. That's a bit too much. Yang Chendong's face showed a trace of anger, which made him very uncomfortable. Presumably, no one would feel good being stared at by the emperor. Fortunately, Yang Chendong was not an ordinary person, and he knew what it meant by impatience in small matters would spoil great plans. Fine, since you've already made your move, I'll naturally receive it. Someone, bring Lady Shui here. Yang Chendong ordered outside the study and began to plan the birthday party in his mind. He received the news at lunchtime. In the afternoon, a eunuch came to deliver the imperial edict. After explaining the emperor's intention, an imperial edict was delivered to Yang Chendong's hands. After that, the eunuch who delivered the edict leaned over to Yang Chendong, who was kneeling on the ground, and whispered in his ear. Eunuch Wang said that official Yang doesn't need to be too difficult, as long as the situation is good enough. As for His Majesty, Duke Wang will put in a good word for him. Thank you, Eunuch Wang. Yang Chendong agreed with a smile. Then he winked at Tiger's Mane, who was standing beside him. Immediately, 100 taels of silver were delivered to the eunuch's hands. The eunuch's eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled. As long as there were eunuchs in the palace, there was no one who did not know Yang Chendong. The diapers they were using now were supplied by him, which solved a big problem for them for many years, so they could be calm in any situation. In addition, the business of immortal abode and outer sky was booming. The eunuchs were full of curiosity and affection for Yang Shi. Not to mention other things, money was always the favorite thing of these people. In their eyes, it was impossible for them to have any descendants. What would they do when they were old? If they wanted others to serve them willingly, they needed money, the more the better. In their eyes, Yang Chendong was the biggest money tree, so no eunuch would be lazy if they had the chance to come in contact with him. Just like this time, who knew how many eunuchs were scrambling to do this task? And this person in front of him got what he wanted. He only had to make a trip and he received 100 taels of silver. How could he not be happy? The eunuch left happily. As he watched their silhouettes disappear, Hu Mang, who was at the side, came up to him. There was a hint of anger on his face as he said, "Young master, isn't it too much to give them 100 taels just like that? They are just doing their job." "Hey, do you think the young master is still lacking money?" Yang Chendong shook his head unconcernedly. In his eyes, money was perhaps the most worthless thing. If he could use this to buy people's hearts, he didn't mind spending tens of thousands of gold. Only 100 taels of silver could earn him a reputation for being generous. In his eyes, this was completely worth it. Tiger's mane, remember, don't underestimate anyone. Because as long as a person is used well, no matter how inconspicuous they usually are, they can play an extremely important role at a crucial time. Also, it's just spending a bit of money to make people work for us. No matter how you look at it, we're profiting. Using this matter, Yang Chendong taught his most trusted subordinate. Okay, in a while, you'll receive another 100,000 taels of silver. The intelligence system of the capital needs to be strengthened. I want to know what every important official is doing every day. I also want to know the power distribution of the eunuchs in the palace. I even want to know which concubine Zhu Qizhen favors and where he stayed last night. I want to know everything, understand? Yes. Tiger's mane stood at attention and then turned to leave. He was well aware that the young master was advising him as well as hammering him. It seemed like the development of the capital's Bureau of Security was still a little too slow. But it didn't matter. As long as there was enough money, there was nothing that couldn't be done, and there was no information that couldn't be gathered. The third princess was going to celebrate her birthday, and Yang Chendong was in charge of planning it. This matter spread like the wind through the imperial palace, through the imperial court, and even into the manners of the various officials. The reason even the families of the officials knew about it was because the emperor had invited all the daughters of the officials to the imperial palace on the same day and celebrate together. If one were to ask which young master or young master had the most influence in the hearts of the young ladies, if Yang Chendong was ranked second, no one would dare to be first. Even the current emperor, Zhu Qizhen, was slightly inferior. Zhu Qizhen already had Empress Qian and 2 official consorts in the harem. As for the other concubines, they were too numerous to count. Marrying the emperor was indeed glorious, but there were too many challenges to face. There were so many that these girls were worried that they would be eaten alive and spat out after entering the palace. In contrast, Yang Chendong was completely different. He didn't have a wife. Even if he had an official concubine, it was said that he only had Xiao Yin, the maid who warmed his bed, and Lady Shui, who threw herself into his arms. Even Lady Xiang, who was always by his side, was still a virgin. If they could marry Yang Chendong, given their background, they would naturally have a respected status, and that would mean that they would have endless money to spend. Moreover, this person was only 19 years old, and he was already a 5th-rank official. His future could be described as limitless. Not to mention that Yang Chendong was originally handsome and confident. Which girl wouldn't like him? When they heard that it was Dong Shui who planned the birthday banquet, the girls' minds became active. They all went to their parents and begged to be allowed to enter the palace on that day. Regarding this, the officials had their own opinions. To be able to become an official of the court, which one of them wasn't experienced? Which one of them hadn't experienced 81 difficulties to achieve success? Which one of them didn't spend their days trying to figure out the emperor's intentions and observing the situation of the court? Because of this, the officials could see that this wasn't a good job to begin with. It was very likely that the emperor had set a trap for Yang Chendong in order to find an opportunity to deal with him. As for what they could obtain after dealing with him, this wasn't something that the officials dared to guess. Since it was a trap, the officials naturally wouldn't allow their daughters' requests. This muddy water wasn't easy to wade in. The officials' reactions were almost the same. Naturally, this kind of matter would be noticed by the East faction guards. Someone immediately reported this matter to Zhu Qizhen. What? The officials don't agree? It's Zhen's younger sister's birthday, how would they dare to disobey? Could it be that they are distressed over the small amount of gift money? Men, issue an edict. Tell all the officials in Zhen's name that all of their daughters must enter the palace on that day to celebrate Princess Xiangda's birthday. Those who don't comply will be punished for defying the edict. Zhu Qizhen said with a face full of anger. Since he wanted to deal with Yang Chendong, it was naturally better to make it as big as possible. Taking the initiative to invite the daughters of the officials, how could Zhu Qizhen let go of such an opportunity to blow things up? He naturally had to carry it out. Not only that, he also imagined that when things went wrong, he would stand out and clean up the mess with the imperial family's reputation. In this way, even if the other officials pleaded for leniency, he would only ask for a fine of silver and not a change in his official position. The others wouldn't be able to say anything. Zhu Qizhen's edict reached the various residences. For a moment, everyone was in a state of chaos. It seemed that they wouldn't have the chance to avoid this muddy water even if they wanted to. Tell Yang Chendong to be careful. The Minister of Works, Shi Pu, said to his butler. This isn't an easy job. Tell him to be careful. The Minister of Revenue, Wang Zuo, pondered in his study. In the end, he still decided to remind Yang Chendong. Sigh, young people should still be cautious. How about this, Changning, you will personally make a trip. The Minister of Rights, Hu Xiao, sighed in his study. This meant that he had already approved of the marriage between Yang Chendong and his granddaughter, Hu Yan. The Minister of Personnel, Wang Zhi, was even more direct. His grandson, Wang Si, directly left the capital and went to the Yang family manor. The four ministers, as well as the assistant ministers and officials below the third rank, had sent people to remind Yang Chendong in various ways. They had also more or less received benefits from Yang Chendong in various aspects. If they were officials who had some friendship with Yang Chendong in the past, they would not be able to do anything. Chapter 117. This was the so-called aristocratic group. When something happened, it was natural for them to band together. Regardless of whether it was to help each other or because they were intimately interdependent, at least 1/3 of the officials in the capital participated in this matter and issued a kind warning to Yang Chendong. This time, even Wang Jin sent a eunuch to warn him. He even personally sent Mao Mu, the eunuch of the ceremony supervisor, to the Yang family manor. Dong Shuai, eunuch Wang said that this time, the emperor is really angry and will definitely teach you a lesson. No matter how good the third princess' birthday banquet is, he will still express his dissatisfaction. Mao Mu looked carefully at Yang Chendong. Because of Yang Chendong, Mao Mu was no longer the eunuch who was looked down upon by others. He had his own power and had a group of followers and a certain amount of power in the entire palace. Humans were like this. Before they had power, they might be able to live a peaceful life. But once they had power, they would only seek greater things and be more afraid of losing them. Mao Mu knew very well in his heart that he could be where he was today because of who gave him everything. He also knew that everything he had now was completely within the power of this person to take back. Because of this, his respect for Yang Chendong came from the bottom of his heart. It was the loyalty of a servant to his master. Knowing that his situation had long been tied to Dong Shuai's, Mao Mu spoke with a bit of caution and anxiety. When he spoke, he naturally considered it from Dong Shuai's point of view. Yang Chendong could sense Mao Mu's worry and anxiety, which made him feel very gratified. At the same time, he stepped forward and patted Mao Mu's shoulder. This young master knows all that you have said. But since it has already happened, what we need to think about now is how to change the situation and not escape from it. Do you understand? How about this, I'll help you with something. Yang Chendong smiled. At this moment, he was as confident as a general who commanded thousands of troops before a great war. As the third princess' birthday approached, the atmosphere in the entire imperial palace seemed to have become much more tense. However, unlike the others, Princess Changde, who was the protagonist, did not feel it at all. Instead, her face was filled with anticipation, looking forward to what kind of surprise Dong Shuai would bring her. Third princess, a eunuch called Mao Mu is looking for you. He said that the East Marshal has something important to discuss with you. You see. Her personal maid walked to Princess Changde's side and whispered into her ear. Dong Shuai is looking for me? Princess Changde's face was filled with astonishment. She could not understand why this Yang Chendong was looking for her when her birthday had not yet arrived. Yes, this eunuch Mao also said that if the princess doesn't agree to see him, she will definitely regret it. When the maidservant thought of the 100 taels of silver she had just received, she tried her best to put in a good word for Mao Mu. To be honest, it was just a eunuch who wanted to see the princess. She actually gave him 100 taels of silver as a reward. This silver was too easy to earn. The innocent third princess nodded curiously. Arrange for him to come in. But remember, don't let anyone else see him. Having been in the imperial palace since young, she naturally knew that it was difficult to keep any secrets here. Although eunuchs were everywhere in the imperial harem, this eunuch Mao was someone sent by the East Marshal. Naturally, he was different from others. Once he was discovered, who knew what kind of waves it would cause? Yes, Prince. Don't worry, I will definitely not let anyone else see you. Afraid that her 100 taels of silver would fly away, the maidservant said with a resolute face. What would come in the end. Under the attention of many people, the third princess' birthday finally arrived. On this day, the imperial palace seemed to be much livelier. With the intention of making a big deal out of this matter, Zhu Qizhen deliberately made the entire imperial palace know about this matter. He also specially issued an edict that the eunuchs and maidservants of each palace, as long as they were not on duty, could come to join in the fun and see the difference and uniqueness between the East Marshal and others. In the morning, after the court, the daughters of the ministers began to line up to enter the imperial palace. From afar, the number of people was at least 500. This was because maids were not allowed to enter the imperial palace. Otherwise, there would be more people. But even so, with such influence and scale, it was likely that no matter what happened, it would be clearly known to all the officials. Yang Duo and Hu Yen were also in the crowd, lining up to enter the imperial palace. By right, Yang Duo was already married and was not qualified to attend the third princess banquet. But because she was a member of the Yang family, she was specially approved. At this time, she was walking together with Hu Yen, but no matter how one looked at it, the two of them looked a little anxious. The environment could affect a person. They were both born in the families of important ministers, so their sensitivity to some things was naturally incomparable to that of ordinary people. They could clearly feel that this banquet would not be a good one, and the wine would not be good. But compared to the other people who were more interested in watching the show, they were more worried about Yang Chendong. Although the matter between Hu Yen and Yang Chendong was not made public, as the seventh sister, Yang Duo naturally knew about it. When she saw that Hu Yen, who had always been playful and cute, was trembling nervously at the moment, she couldn't help but gently tug at her arm and said with a smile, "What's wrong? You haven't married yet, but you're already worried about your future husband?" Hu Yen, who was originally very nervous, immediately blushed when Yang Duo said this. "Seventh sister, could it be that you're not worried about Dong Shuai? My grandfather said that this time, it is clearly the emperor who is looking for trouble with Dong Shuai." How could Yang Duo not know the importance of this matter? Even at home, her husband, Wang Go, who had been well behaved for a while, recently jumped up again. Especially that evil mother-in-law, Yan Shi, who was full of sarcastic remarks. Looking at her attitude, it was as if her sixth brother had already been given the cold shoulder by the emperor. Although she said that she was worried, Yang Duo knew that this was not the time to panic. Otherwise, before the emperor did anything, Dong Shuai would have problems first. "Don't worry, could it be that you don't have any confidence in Dong Shuai?" "I have confidence, but this time, it is the emperor." Hu Yen still wanted to continue explaining. "It's good that you have confidence." Yang Duo directly interrupted. "Since you have confidence, then let's see how your Dong Shuai will create a miracle." Originally, Hu Yan's face was full of worry, but after hearing Yang Duo's words, she calmed down a lot for no reason. Then, her steps became much firmer. She was looking forward to Dong Shuai's wonderful performance in her heart. Compared to the nervousness of others, the main character, Yang Chendong, was very calm, at least on the surface. When the time came, he strode into the inner palace of the imperial city under the lead of a steward eunuch. This was also his first time here. His face was full of curiosity, looking left and right as if he was here for a vacation. This also caused the steward eunuch to be secretly amazed. Everyone said that Dong Shuai was very capable. Although he wasn't too clear, At least his ability to maintain his composure was incomparable to others. He still remembered the first time he entered the palace. His face was full of anxiety and nervousness. How could he dare to be as natural as Dong Shuai? Dong Shuai? The palace in front is where Princess Xianxia rests. Today's birthday banquet will also be held there. Seeing that they were almost there, the steward eunuch reminded Yang Chendong in a small voice. Okay, thank you for your hard work. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, revealing a confident smile. Like magic, he took out a large piece of silver from his sleeve and casually handed it over. This was the biggest piece of silver. One piece was worth 20 taels. After the steward eunuch took it in his hand, he smiled like a flower and said, "Then I wish Dong Shuai all the best." "Ah, good. Thank you for your auspicious words." Yang Chendong laughed heartily, then quickened his steps, as if he didn't know that there was a battlefield in front of him, and that there was some beautiful scenery waiting for him. Yang Chendong arrived, just an hour before the other daughters of the officials. This was also specially arranged by Zhu Qizhen. He didn't want to give Dong Shuai too much time to react and watch him make a fool of himself. After rushing to Princess Xianxia's palace, Yang Chendong saw the main character of today's banquet, the third princess. When the gorgeously dressed third princess saw Yang Chendong, her face revealed an unnoticeable smile, then she went forward to greet him generously, giving others the feeling that it was the first time they had met. In fact, this was also the first time the two of them had officially met, but in private, they had been friends for a long time. Yang Chendong greets Princess Xianxia. "Long live the princess." After saying this, Yang Chendong was about to kneel on the ground. Instead, it was the third princess who stepped forward and said, "Yang Shima, you don't have to be so polite. You still have to work hard today." Yang Chendong, who didn't kneel, raised his head to look carefully at the third princess. He found that this girl was indeed very beautiful, and her skin was also very good. However, those eyes of hers seemed to be moving too quickly, giving people the feeling that she was too mischievous. Thinking that this was only a girl who had just turned 14 years old, and that playfulness was in her nature, Yang Chendong didn't want to dwell on this matter. Instead, he lowered his head and replied respectfully, "In reply to the princess, it's not hard for this official to work for His Majesty and the princess. All right, in a while, this official will arrange for some people and things to be brought into the palace. I hope the princess can make things convenient." Of course. This princess has already made the arrangements. Yang Shima, please rest assured. The third princess smiled and nodded in agreement. Since everything was left to Yang Chendong to arrange, then of course the people and things he prepared would be brought into the palace. Otherwise, what kind of tricks could a man like him come up with? After a simple greeting, Yang Chendong walked around the palace accompanied by a few eunuchs. He needed to take care of the environment and find a good spot. At least, he would know how to place the things and people he had arranged when they arrived. Chapter 118. The eunuchs who followed him were all doing their best. When they faced Yang Chendong, they all had a flattering look on their faces. They had all received 500 taels of silver from eunuch Mao Mu in advance. How could they not do their best now? With everyone's cooperation, Yang Chendong soon had a good idea of the arrangements for the various locations. In fact, he had already gotten the blueprint of the palace before. Now he just needed to walk around in the real world and confirm the final location. For hours later, the people and things arranged were all in place. More than 500 daughters of officials who came to watch the ceremony also came to the palace. They were scattered within the range of their activities, chatting in groups of 3 or 5. It seemed that everything was ready. Finally, a sharp shout came, "The Emperor and the Empress Dowager are here." Soon, the whole place became quiet. Zhu Qizhen, who was dressed in a dragon robe, walked to the courtyard of Princess Xianxia's palace, surrounded by Empress Qian and a group of concubines. They sat in the seats arranged by Yang Chendong. There were too many people. Ordinary palaces could not accommodate them. Fortunately, it was the end of April, the beginning of May. The daytime weather in the capital was still very pleasant. Since they were all arranged in the courtyard, no one had any objections. In the courtyard, everyone was in place. Yang Chendong, the organizer and planner, was also watching all this from a corner. When he saw that even the emperor and empress were present, he smiled and nodded slightly to Madame Shui, who was not far away. Madame Shui got Yang Chendong's hint and said loudly, "The birthday celebration of Princess Xianxia officially begins. Please enjoy the first program, the opening dance, Happy Birthday Song." As soon as Madame Shui finished speaking, a group of 14 or 15 years old girls ran out from the corner of the palace. They all wore short skirts that exposed their knees. They were young and lively and ran out separately. The sudden appearance of so many people caused everyone present to be shocked at first, but when they saw these beautiful girls, whose average age was only between 13 and 16 years old, go straight to the third princess's side and surround her, after being surprised, they all revealed expressions of understanding. Needless to say, this must have been arranged by Dong Shui. Sure enough, it was different. This opening was completely different from the previous ones. The sudden appearance of dozens of beautiful girls also shocked Zhu Qizhen, who was just about to find fault with the situation. Originally, he wanted to express his dissatisfaction in the first program and was prepared to give Yang Chendong a show of strength. But unexpectedly, he was shocked by the exposed white thighs. In the entire scene, there were only two real men. One was him, and the other was Dong Shui Yang Chendong. Naturally, Yang Chendong had already seen these leggings countless times, so he was already immune to them and used to them. Zhu Qizhen was different. Although he had many concubines in his harem, they were usually dignified and beautiful in consideration of their status. Who would dare to wear such clothes in front of him? Naturally, he was shocked by this sudden sight. He was so shocked that he completely forgot about finding fault with him. In contrast, Princess Xianxia, who was surrounded by the girls, was very happy. She only knew in advance that there would be such an opening dance that required her cooperation. When the time came, she only needed to follow these girls and walk around the field. But she never thought that it would be such a big scene, especially the clothes they were wearing. They were so beautiful that they could show off their beauty completely. It made her want to wear one of them. According to the previous agreement, after being surrounded by the beautiful girls, Princess Xianxia followed them from the stage to the field. Then the sound of guzhing and pipa sounded. After a prelude that no one had heard before, Madame Shui walked on the field in person. She bowed slightly to the third princess, and then sang a beautiful song. There is always a song on the road of growth. It's a happy birthday song. With our growth, it's a familiar song. Holding your hand, I want to sing a happy birthday song with you. Today is your birthday. I just want to tell you that today is your birthday. I wrote a song for you. You and I are in the song. I'm so happy. This birthday song of Lu Mingzhe was not famous even in the future, but it was suitable for today's occasion. Yang Chendong had searched in the big warehouse for a long time before he found this song. As soon as the song was played, it immediately excited the audience. It was a new song that no one had heard at all, and it was so relevant. No one could think of any reason to object. Even Zhu Qizhen had long wanted to make things difficult for Yang Chendong, but at this moment, he really couldn't find a better reason to do so. He could only look on with hope and find a way to hold Yang Chendong accountable in the next step. From his investigation of Yang Chendong, he had come to the conclusion that although he was very good at composing songs, especially new ones, they were usually inspirational and emotional. However, it was clear that this kind of song was not suitable for the occasion of the princess' birthday. When the time came, Zhu Qizhen would be able to find a reason to punish Yang Chendong. The happy birthday song ended with the accompaniment of the girls. Following that, a different kind of music began to play. Zhu Qizhen's eyes lit up. As the heavy melody played, Princess Xianxia's expression changed from one of joy to one of seriousness. At some point, Mu Lily, the former procuress of the Hundred Flowers Hall and one of the stewards of the Immortal abode, was standing beside the third princess. Mu Lily had already become a woman from a good family. Following the introduction of the melody, she suddenly opened her mouth and sang in a mezzo-soprano voice, "Thinking of your back, I feel your tenacity. Touching your hands, I feel your hardships. Unknowingly, white hair has appeared on your temples. Silently, wrinkles have appeared at the corners of your eyes. My old father, the person I dote on the most. The song Old Father took the stage. When she sang about my old father, the person I dote on the most, Princess Xianxia also sang along with her, her expression full of deep emotion. She was using this song to tell everyone that she was reminiscing about her father, Ming Xuanzong Zhuzhanji. Originally, this kind of song was more suitable for a man to sing. For example, Yang Chendong, who had been controlling everything from the shadows, was an extremely suitable person. However, after some consideration, he gave up on the idea of doing it himself. Firstly, if he openly appeared in a place filled with women other than the emperor, it would easily cause trouble. Secondly, no matter how good Ming Xuanzong Zhuzhanji was, he wasn't his father. Why should he stand out and sing for someone else? If Yang Chendong didn't come out to sing, Princess Xianxia definitely wouldn't be able to complete the song. If she forced herself to sing, it would only cause the meaning to change. Thus he chose Mu Lily. This former courtesan had experienced many things, and her voice carried a trace of vicissitudes. She was just the right person to sing the song. Thus, the scene in front of them was born. Mu Lily sang the lead, and Princess Xianxia sang the key words, completing the song. The reason why she had to sing Old Father was because in the past dynasties, the emperors usually ruled the world with benevolence and filial piety. Without a father, how could a child be born? Once this song was played, it was really just to fit the situation. At least, once the song was played, Zhu Qizhen, who had been finding fault with it, couldn't say anything. After the song Old Father ended, the melody changed again. Mu Lily left as quietly as she came, and left without attracting anyone's attention. Only Princess Xianxia was left standing in the middle of the field, speaking to the crowd with a trace of sadness in her voice. 14 years ago, my mother gave birth to me on this day. Now that I've grown up, she's truly separated from me forever. As her daughter, I miss her dearly. Now, I'll dedicate the song, Only Mother is Good in the World, to everyone. I also hope that my deceased mother can feel that her daughter misses her. These lines that Yang Chendong had composed quickly resonated with everyone, especially since most of the people present were women. There were even women like Empress Qian, who was going to be a mother in the future. Princess Xiangxia's words instantly aroused their endless thoughts about their mother. Only mother is good in the world. A child with a mother is like a treasure. Throw yourself into your mother's embrace, and you won't be able to enjoy happiness. Princess Xiangxia's voice carried a trace of longing and reminiscence, instantly stirring up the emotions of everyone present. Because the lyrics were simple and the melody easy to understand, many people present agreed on the third time. Even Empress Qian's tears flowed freely. When she heard this song, it wasn't difficult for her expression to change. She couldn't help but think of how well her mother had treated her when she was growing up in Haizhou, now Lianyungang, Jiangsu. She immediately tugged at Emperor Zhu Qizhen with her slender hands. Your Majesty, Xianxia Mrs. Mother. All right, after a while, Zhen will arrange for someone to bring her to the capital to accompany you. Zhu Qizhen looked at this Empress Qian, who rarely asked for anything from him, and immediately agreed. The song Only Mother is Good in the World had stirred up everyone's emotions. Most of the daughters of the officials were thinking that when they returned home from the palace later, they would personally accompany their mothers. At the very least, they would have to thank their mothers for their hard work. Everyone's emotions were so affected that no one noticed that a beautiful, three-tiered pastry had been pushed to the center of the hall, right next to the birthday girl, Princess Xianxia. Everyone, please calm down. Since it's a birthday, how could there not be a birthday cake? Everyone, please take a look. This is the birthday cake that our Immortal abode has just released. There's cream on top and a soft pastry underneath. It's fragrant, sweet, and delicious. Everyone will be able to taste it in a moment. Before that, there's one more thing to do, and that is to light a candle and make a wish. Madame Shui's voice clearly rang out in the hall, entering everyone's ears. Chapter 119. Lighting candles to make a wish? What does that mean? A minister's daughter, who had a loose tongue, was puzzled. In fact, not only her, but many people were not very clear about this kind of new birthday ceremony. Madame Shui smiled. Before they came, the sixth young master had told her the story. Now she was full of confidence and said, "It is said that in the world of immortals, people there worship the goddess of the moon, Chang. Every year, they hold a birthday celebration for her. At the banquet, cakes made of flour and honey were placed on the cake with many lit candles. They compared the light from the candles to the moonlight to show their special worship for the goddess of the moon. Later, when the immortals celebrated their children's birthdays, they also liked to put cakes on the table with many small lit candles on the cake. They also added the part of blowing out the candles. They believed that the burning candles had some kind of mysterious power. When people on their birthdays made a wish in their hearts, they could blow out all the candles in one breath to fulfill their wish. In the story, Artemis was replaced by Chang Yi, which was naturally Yang Chendong's intention. He wanted the most mainstream culture in the world to be Han culture in the future. Even when talking about immortals, it should be mainly Han immortals. This little story was a kind of beginning of change. After Madame Shui finished her story, everyone was curious. Hu Yen, who was in the crowd, whispered in Yang Duo's ear, "He must have made these things." "Of course. What do you think? You'll be happy when you marry him. He has a lot of ideas. I promise you that you won't have the same birthday every year," Yang Duo said jokingly. These days, under the care of her sixth brother, Yang Chendong, she became more lively and cheerful. In the Wang family, there were enough maids for her to order around, so she didn't have to listen to anyone's orders. Over time, she slowly regained her original temperament and was able to chat and laugh with Hu Yen, who was familiar with her. "Oh, Sister Duo, what are you talking about? You're so annoying." Hu Yen blushed when she heard this. She looked shy, but only she knew how much she wanted to marry Yang Chendong. In the middle of the venue, the three-tiered cake was already filled with 14 edible candles of different colors. After they were lit one by one, Princess Xianxia crossed her arms and closed her eyes to make a silent wish. On the side, Madame Snow and the 14 girls who had been prepared in advance sang softly together, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you." Princess Xianxia made her wish amidst the singing of "Happy Birthday." She opened her red lips and blew out the 14 candles with the help of Lady Shui and the other girls. Immediately, there was a round of enthusiastic applause. After making a wish and blowing out the candles, the next step was to cut the cake. A suitable knife had already been placed in Princess Xianxia's hands, and pieces of cake of the same size were sliced out. Princess Xianxia even gave the first 2 pieces to her imperial brother Zhu Qizhen and imperial sister-in-law Empress Qian. The other girls who had come to watch the ceremony were also given a small piece of cake according to their parents' official positions. Because there were so many people to share, a few more large pieces of cake were brought in. Even so, everyone could only eat a small piece. Fortunately, everyone quickly learned from Madame Snow and Mu Lily that the Immortal abode was already selling such delicious and beautiful cakes. This wasn't too disappointing. But at the same time, these women also made a decision. When they returned, they would immediately send someone to the Immortal abode to buy a cake for them to try. So what if it wasn't her birthday? Who said they couldn't eat something so delicious? The birthday song ended, and the cake was divided up. Logically speaking, this birthday banquet was already perfect. At the very least, it was unprecedented. However, in Yang Chendong's eyes, this was far from enough. He knew very well why the emperor had ordered him to host this banquet. It was obviously to make trouble for him. Even though he'd used all sorts of methods and novel things to prevent the emperor from finding an excuse to make trouble for him, there was no such thing as a thief. But there was no such thing as guarding against thieves all day long. He still decided to pay a little to alleviate the pressure the emperor was putting on him. Now, it's time to present the gifts. Below is a small token of my appreciation for Princess Xianxia's birthday. Please kindly accept it. As if by magic, a list of gifts appeared in Madame Snow's hands. When she saw that everyone's eyes were on her, including Emperor Zhu Qixian's, she smiled sweetly and waved her hand. Her voice was as beautiful as an oriole's. To celebrate Princess Changda's birthday, Yang Chendong will send 10 mirrors, 50 boxes of transparent glasses, 4 in each box, 100 bottles of perfume, 500 sets of soap, 1,000 pieces of tissue paper. As the singing continued, many eunuchs from the palace carried the items on the list into the field. Soon, they were piled up like a small mountain. Emperor Zhu Qixian, who was standing not far away, saw these things appear in front of him. His originally stern expression finally relaxed. These were all very popular items. Some of them were even sold in limited quantities. They were the kind that could not be bought even if one had money. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Obviously, this was Yang Chendong's attitude. Taking the opportunity of the princess's birthday, he took the initiative to give gifts and benefits to the royal family. As you said, this is a good thing. In fact, Yang Shima had specially sent people to bring it over from the sea. Just for this item, he had spent a total of 30,000 taels of silver. Moreover, this was a priceless item. Our great Ming dynasty only has one. But it's so expensive. It's a little expensive, but compared to its effects, it's not that excessive. When will a man give me such a thing on my birthday? Then I'll be satisfied. She's willing to give herself to him, isn't that right? This girl is in love. Suddenly, all kinds of voices came from the crowd. For a moment, some people even laughed and played together. In the crowd, Hu Yan happened to hear Madame Xue's words. A trace of disappointment flashed across her face. When she saw the birthday music box, she fell in love with it. She was wondering if she could get such a thing on her birthday. But when she heard that there was only one in the entire Great Ming dynasty, she knew that she was dreaming too much. Chapter 120. Compared to the other womenfolk's disappointment, Princess Xiangda was extremely happy. There was only one such good thing in the entire Great Ming dynasty. This showed the importance of this piece of music. Thus, she became even more curious about Yang Chendong, who gave her this gift. Why did he give her such an expensive gift? Was it only because she was a princess? But what if the other princesses also requested Yang Chendong to hold birthday banquets for them? What would he do? The birthday banquet ended with a small mountain of good things. Next, the womenfolk ate some other food and left the palace in 2s and 3s to return to their own residences. Hu Yan also took a carriage back to the Hu residence. As soon as she entered, the servant girl Xiaoqing greeted her with a mysterious expression. Miss, quickly go back to your room and take a look. The East Marshal has given you a big box. Big box? The East Marshal gave it to me. Hearing this, Hu Yan couldn't help but quicken her pace and trot back to her room. Then, she opened the box with curiosity and excitement. The first thing she saw was a birthday music box that was even bigger than the one Princess Xiangda received. On top of the box was a merry-go-round. After the switch was turned, the beautiful melody of a birthday song immediately sounded. Hu Yan was so happy that she couldn't bear to put it down. Miss, what is this? It can actually make its own sound, and it's so exquisite. Xiaoqing's voice suddenly sounded behind her. Hu Yan was so frightened that she turned around and covered her mouth. She clearly remembered what Madame Xue had said about this being the only one in the entire Great Ming dynasty. Now, there was an even better birthday music box in her hands. Didn't Yang Chendong commit the crime of deceiving the emperor? Xiaoqing, forget everything you saw just now. No matter who asks, you can't say that you've seen such a thing. Do you understand? Hu Yan said very seriously. Xiaoqing was confused. In all her life, this was the first time she had seen her miss speak to her so seriously. After instructing Xiaoqing not to talk nonsense, Hu Yan carried the beautiful music box to the bedside. She opened the quilt and dove in. By doing this, she could prevent the sound from spreading out, and she could enjoy the beautiful sound alone. Of course, the sweetness was still in her heart. Through this matter, She knew that Dong Shuai had her in his heart, which was the happiest thing. While Hu Yen was thinking about Dong Shuai, Yang Chendong had already left the imperial palace and returned to the Yang clan manor. As soon as they entered the manor's inner courtyard, Yang Chendong took off his fifth-rank official robes and said to Tiger's Mane, "Spread the news that I, young master, fell when I fell from my horse and needed to rest for a while." "Young master, did you really fall somewhere?" Tiger's Mane was shocked when he heard the news. He looked closely at Yang Chendong. "You were with him the whole way. When did you see the young master fall off his horse? This is just a way to get some peace and quiet." Yang Chendong smiled bitterly and shook his head. But he also knew that it was because Tiger's Mane was too concerned about him that he lost his basic judgment. Oh. Tiger's Mane smiled foolishly and scratched his head. He nodded and turned to go about his business. Not long after, many people in the capital knew that the sixth young master of the Yang clan fell because he was riding too fast. This matter was passed to Wang Zhen through the brocade guard. He was surprised at first, then shook his head with a smile. "He's avoiding trouble. This is also good. It's not a good thing to be too outstanding. It seems that we should let the emperor know." When Wang Zhen went to see Zhu Qizhen and told him about Yang Chendong falling off his horse, the young emperor quickly figured out the crux of the matter. He smiled and said, "It seems that we are too concerned about Yang Chendong. This kind of concern is too much for him to bear. Forget it. Since it's like this, arrange for an imperial physician to take a look. Tell him that we will allow him to rest for a period of time." After holding a birthday banquet and sending gifts, Yang Chendong finally got rid of Zhu Qizhen's concern and was able to take a breather. He wanted to rest well and do what he wanted to do, but the situation did not allow it. In the 14th year of Zhengtong, Yeshen, the leader of the Mongolian Wara tribe, sent his younger brother to the capital of the Great Ming Dynasty as an envoy. On the surface, it was to pay tribute, but in reality, it was to ask for something. When it came to the Wala, there was one person that could not be avoided. He was the leader of the Wala, Yeshen. In the 3rd year of Zhengtong, the escaped Atai Khan was captured and killed by Tua Huan. The Mongolian plateau was reunited in the hands of the Wala. At this point, Tua Huan laid the foundation for his son, Yeshen. After Tua Huan passed away, Yeshen succeeded the throne. After Yeshen succeeded the throne, he called himself the imperial tutor, King Huai. All the tribes of the Wala submitted to Yeshen. As Yeshen's power and influence grew, the Tatar chief's title of Great Khan became an empty title. He could no longer restrain Yeshen. The Wara would pay tribute to the Ming dynasty every year. Tuabuhua and Yeshen, the ruler and subject, both sent envoys to the Ming dynasty. At this time, it was clear that Yeshen did not need to listen to Tuabuhua's instructions. At this point, the relationship between the Tartars and the Wala was similar to the current relationship between North and South Korea. As Yeshen was a cunning Wala leader, he was not as honest as the other Mongols. Instead, he was as cunning as a rabbit. As time went on, the power of the Tartars became smaller and smaller. Not long later, he controlled the Tartars and conquered Yulanhar, unifying the 3 Mongol tribes. On the grasslands, the Wala slowly became the strongest. After unifying the Mongols, Vachi wanted to restore Daoist and unify the country. As a result, he harassed the Ming dynasty and became a huge problem in the north. Wang Zhen used power. Not only did he not strengthen the border, but he also accepted bribes from Vachi and smuggled goods with the Vachi nobles. For the sake of profits, Wang Zhen asked his best friend, Guijing, to make large amounts of arrows and give them to Vachi. Vachi would return good horses to Wang Zhen as a form of repayment. To get on the good side of Vachi, Wang Zhen also treated the envoys well and rewarded them. Ever since Vachi established a tribute relationship with the Ming dynasty, he would send envoys to the Ming dynasty with good horses and other goods. The Ming dynasty government would reward the envoys accordingly. Under normal circumstances, the reward would slightly exceed the value of the tribute. At the same time, the envoys had to be rewarded as well. As a result, Vachi was very willing to pay tribute to the Ming dynasty in order to obtain the wealth of the Central Plains. According to the original rules, Vachi could not send more than 50 envoys to the Ming dynasty each year. Later on, Vachi's greed for the rewards from the Ming dynasty grew, and the number of envoys increased day by day. For example, this time, the periodical king had brought a group of 2,500 envoys. In order to receive more rewards, he had falsely reported that it was 3,000 people. As soon as he entered the capital, the name he heard the most from the Walla spies in the capital was Yang Chendong. In the capital, when Yang Chendong was mentioned, the immortal abode had to be mentioned. The periodical king brought Captain Tuj Er's group of 5 to this place, which was known as the most delicious and fun place in the capital. If one hadn't entered the immortal abode, they wouldn't have known that people could still live like this. The delicacies here were things they had never tasted before, the music they had never heard before, the drinks and desserts they had never seen before, and even the chess and cards they had never heard of before. He only wanted to come here to try the fresh food before leaving. Who would have thought that after entering this place in the afternoon, he would only leave reluctantly when it was time to close for the curfew? Even then, he still looked like he had not had enough of it. After half a day, when Tuj went to pay the bill, he found that they had spent a total of 120 taels of silver. They hadn't even had a chance to play, but they had already spent so much money. If they tried everything, they probably wouldn't even have enough silver in their pockets to pay the bill. When the group of 5 returned to the relay station, the periodical king still had a look of reminiscence on his face. Let's go there early tomorrow and find a good place to play for another day. This place is much better than our great steppe. General, the immortal abode isn't a good place, but it isn't a place we can afford to spend money on. We haven't even eaten anything today. 120 taels of silver is gone just like that. Tuj stood off to the side with a pained expression. What? It's that expensive? The periodical king's expression changed when he heard this. However, he immediately began to laugh loudly. I didn't expect the immortal abode to make so much money. Then this general must meet this Yang Jima. General wants to meet that eastern commander? Tuj didn't understand what the periodical king meant. He wore an unfathomable smile on his face. Correct. This general wants to bring him business and give him a chance to make a lot of money. Tuj didn't quite understand the periodical king's intentions, but since the general had said so, he had no choice but to make the arrangements. There weren't many people in Walla who were smarter than the general. As the captain of the guards, he was quite confident in this. Just like that, the next morning, a group of uninvited guests arrived outside the Yang clan manor. The guests didn't come in a soft sedan like the great Ming dynasty's officials. Instead, they came on large horses. They were dressed in the attire of a different race, and the blades at their waists hung unabashedly at their sides. It was as if they would draw their blades at the slightest disagreement. The periodical king purposely brought a group of 20 guards with him to the Yang clan manor. Their formation was quite impressive, causing Yang Wu, who was on duty, to frown. However, when Yang Chendong was training them, he had trained them to be courageous. He didn't seem to be afraid in the slightest. Instead, he boldly stood in front of the group and shouted, "This place belongs to the Crown Prince's steward, Sir Yang." Halt! The group naturally stopped. As the captain of the guards, Tuj naturally went up to welcome them. With an arrogant expression, he shouted at Yang Wu, "Hurry up and inform your master that the periodical king of the Walla has arrived. Hurry up and come out to welcome him." Chapter 121. So the general has come to visit. Please wait for a moment and let my master know. Yang Wu cupped his fist and said politely. After that, he turned around and walked into the manor. However, the wooden door did not open and remained closed. General, this. Seeing that Wang Lin did not have the intention to invite them in, Tuer's face was filled with anger. It's fine. We are new here and this East Marshal has lived in the southern part of the Ming dynasty since he was young. It's normal that he doesn't know about us. As long as someone reports to him, he will meet us. The magazine king had a confident look on his face. Over the years, Walla had become stronger under the leadership of his brother, Yes Hen. Under his overflowing confidence, he looked down on the officials of the Ming dynasty more and more. They were a bunch of people who only knew how to talk. What kind of ability could they have? Moreover, the person he was going to face was only a 5th-rank official. He really did not care about him. Yang Wu came to the inner courtyard of the Yang Manor and told the young master, Yang Chendong, about the magazine king's visit. Then, he stood respectfully at the side and waited. Walla's people? Yang Chendong laughed. He knew about the changes in the Tumu castle from history. Naturally, he had to know about Walla. After knowing that it was the magazine king who came, he did not have the slightest intention of meeting him. They were about to become opponents. If he were to get close to him, it would be hard to avoid attention. This was not what he wanted. Tiger's Mane, go and send them away. You should know what to do. Since becoming the head of the security bureau, Tiger's Mane had a clearer understanding of the outside world. He was very clear about what kind of power Walla had and what kind of people they were. He was also very clear about the attitude of the imperial court towards them. Now that Yang Chendong said this, he immediately understood and nodded. Young master, don't worry. Leave everything to me. After making his promise to Yang Chendong, Tiger's Mane and Yang Wu walked out of the inner courtyard of the Yang residence while arranging for someone to report to the head of the eunuchs, Wang Zhen. No matter what, the other party had appeared as an emissary. If they didn't handle it well, it would be a diplomatic matter between the two countries. The matter might escalate, so they had to report it to the higher-ups. The staff of the security bureau quickly left the Xianxia village through a small path and headed straight for the capital. Tiger's Mane and Yang Wu also walked to the outer gate and stood in front of the Walla emissary and his entourage. Greetings, Envoy Walla. Tiger's Mane greeted politely as soon as he approached. As the second-in-command of Yang Chendong's organization, Tiger's Mane naturally had the aura of a superior as time passed. When he came from afar, he had never seen Yang Chendong. He thought that the person who came was the main character of the competition. He was about to return the greeting, but when he heard that the other party was just a servant, his eyes flashed with anger. No matter what, he was Walla's general and the younger brother of Chief Yeshen. This time, he had already condescended to come to the Xianxia village. If Yang Chendong didn't come out and only sent a servant, how could he keep his face? After Tiger's Mane reported his identity, he didn't look at the other party's ugly expression and said directly, Envoy Walla, my lord was injured a few days ago when he was riding a horse. He is now recuperating in bed. It is really inconvenient for him to meet you. Please understand. Injured? That's good. There are too many warriors on the grassland who get injured while riding a horse. I have good medicine to treat injuries. Let me see if the East Marshal's injury is better. How could the tournament king not see that this was just an excuse? He wanted to expose it on the spot. Finding a reason to refuse the other party instead of directly refusing to meet him was giving the other party face. However, the tournament king didn't know when to back down. Tiger's Mane's face changed slightly and said, This is not good. You are the envoy of Walla. My lord is an important official in the court. It's better not to meet in private to avoid unnecessary trouble. Tiger's Mane repeatedly stopped him, but it angered the guard captain, Tugger. In his eyes, the general coming to the Xianxia village was giving enough face. Yang Chendong didn't want face, so he couldn't blame him for speaking rudely. Haha, it's really a joke. He is just an idle official. The crown prince of the Ming dynasty is still a baby. What's the use of washing horses? How can he become an important official? It's really funny to stick gold on his face like this. Tugger looked up to the sky and laughed, causing the guards following him to also laugh. Swoosh! A murderous aura rushed out with Yang Wu as the center and rushed forward at a rapid speed. He clenched his fists and glared angrily, as if he was going to start a massacre at any time. Tiger's Mane was the first to feel the murderous aura. He quickly used a voice that only the two of them could hear to stop it. Someone dared to slander the young master. As a subordinate, of course, he was furious. However, the person in front of him wasn't a nobody. He was the envoy of Walla. If they were all killed here, the consequences would be far beyond what they could bear. Moreover, the matter had already been reported to Wang Zhen. Presumably, there would be people coming to the Xianxia village soon. If they came and saw a ground full of corpses, they wouldn't be able to explain themselves even if they had 1,000 mouths. After stopping Yang Wu and telling him to stop, Hu Mang's expression darkened. Whether or not my lord is an important official of the court is not something a mere guard captain like you can judge. You don't have the qualifications to do so. Please pay attention to your words and actions. Don't provoke any displeasure because of a slip of the tongue. If there are any consequences because of this, I'm afraid you will have to bear it alone. However, I don't know if a small guard like you is able to bear it. He had just said that His Excellency was not an important official, and here he was being looked down upon as a guard. Tuagu immediately looked at Hu Mang with a face full of resentment. You look down on a guard like this? Then you should be very capable, right? However, 1,000 words can't compare to a fight. I just don't know if you have the guts to do so. Tugger rolled up his sleeves, intentionally revealing his thick and strong arms. When he looked at Tiger's mane, he was eager to fight. As the guard captain of the competition king, he was naturally a person with outstanding skills. This was also what he was most proud of. Now that he was showing his strongest side, Tugger was full of confidence. He was even prepared to beat Tiger's mane up until he was looking for his teeth on the ground if he agreed. The Walla were a Mongolian people in the West. They grew up on horses, and fighting bravely was one of the ways they usually solved problems. The tall and sturdy Tugger intentionally revealed the muscles on his arms and looked at Tiger's mane provocatively. However, he didn't know that this performance made him look like a clown in the eyes of others. Tiger's mane and the first batch of Lungfeng were all taught by Yang Chendong. Unlike many other martial arts that were just for show, what he taught was more about killing people. In Yang Chendong's words, war has always been cruel. It won't take care of you just because you're on the side of justice. Similarly, it won't ignore your weakness because you're on the right side. In the end, a real war is about killing and being killed. How to protect yourself while killing is the most important thing. As for other things, they are just fleeting clouds. Under such guidance, Tiger's mane and the others were taught killing moves. The goal of their training was to inflict the greatest damage to the opponent in the shortest amount of time and suppress the opponent's strength and ability. Tugger was just like this. Although he was tall and sturdy, he mostly relied on strength to fight. He was particular about defeating 10 people with strength. If this kind of person was to fight against a brute, he would have a huge advantage. However, when facing the agile Lung Feng members who knew the structure of the human body and knew the weaknesses of the human body, he was too far behind. If they really fought, the opponent only needed to reveal a small flaw, and Tiger's mane would strike with lightning speed and kill the opponent directly. In this way, Tugger's arrogance was like a clown in Tiger's mane's eyes. Naturally, he would ignore him. Tiger's mane's disregard, in Tugger's eyes, he thought that the other party was afraid. He laughed maniacally like a general who had already won the battle. When he thought that his momentum had shocked Tiger's mane and the others, he gave a look to his subordinates and prepared to break into the Yang family manner. Just when Tugger thought that he had the situation under control and wanted to perform well in front of his master, the tournament king, he suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves. Then, behind them, a group of about 50 Iron Cloak guards wearing flying suits approached from afar. The sudden appearance of the Ming Dynasty's brocade guards forced Tugger, who was about to make a move, to stand still. He even intentionally glanced at General Wang beside him. "Don't be afraid. We didn't do anything wrong. Even if the Ming Dynasty's emperor came, what can he do?" The tournament king said arrogantly. Just from this sentence, it could be seen that in Walla's bones, they clearly looked down on the Ming Dynasty's army and even the Ming Dynasty's ruler, Ming Ingzong Zhu Qizhen. Speaking of which, it wasn't that the Walla were arrogant. In fact, in this world, the strong were respected. Just like the Ming Dynasty's Emperor Qingzu's 5 expeditions to the Mongols, the Walla at that time were very respectful to the Ming Dynasty. However, in these years, the Ming Dynasty had changed 3 emperors and no longer fought with the Walla. As time passed, they forgot how powerful the Ming Dynasty was. This was a good example of the saying, "Weak countries have no diplomacy." Tiger's Mane had already seen through Tugger's arrogance and their intention to make a move. In order to ensure the young master's absolute safety, he had already made a gesture when no one was paying attention. No one knew that not far away, Yang Chendong's personal guard, Dao Xiao, had been paying attention to all the movements here. Even the safety of the Type 95 in their hands was unlocked and a silencer was installed. They were only waiting for an order to quickly eliminate the Walla team that came to provoke the Yang family manor. Chapter 122. This was the huge difference between modern weaponry and cold weaponry. It was able to quietly finish off the opponent. Although there might be some trouble afterwards, as long as the scene was cleaned up, even if there were suspicions, there would be nothing they could do if they couldn't find any evidence. But before Tiger's man could give the order, the embroidered uniform guard had already arrived. This speed was enough to show just how important Yang Chendong was to Wang Lin. As expected, there were no eternal friends, only eternal interests. After investing so much money into the immortal abode, if anyone wanted to harm the East Marshal, Wang Lin's attitude would be the first thing they would have to deal with. The embroidered uniform guard had arrived, led by a Qinhu official who was also Wang Lin's trusted aide, Tang Tong. The order that Tang Tong received was to bring the tile emissaries back to the capital. She also strictly ordered the soldiers guarding the city gates to not allow them to leave the city as they pleased. They were also not allowed to appear in the Xianxia manor a second time and cause trouble. After receiving this order, Tang Tong rode over with his men. When he saw that the Walla emissaries were still pacing back and forth outside the gates of the Yang clan manor, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. Soon after, he rushed over with a look of disgust on his face. Tang Tong, who had more than double the number of people, immediately took control of the situation. First, he surrounded Tuj and the others. Then, with a stern face, he sternly said, "You came to my Ming dynasty with the status of a vassal state to pay tribute, so you should abide by the rules here. How can you leave the capital without asking for permission and come to the residence of Lord Yang? Just what are you trying to do?" This Tang Tong actually had some tricks up his sleeve. At the very least, he knew how to gain the upper hand by a show of strength. According to the rules, emissaries could enjoy a certain amount of freedom when entering another country, but only within a certain range. If they wanted to go beyond this range, they had to report it. But because the envoys from Vala came every year, as time passed, no one really paid attention to this rule. But this didn't mean that it didn't exist. At the very least, Tang Tong's words were reasonable, and Tuj didn't know how to respond. He could only look at the magazine king to see his master's opinion. The periodical king saw that the embroidered uniform guards had arrived not long after he arrived. He knew that this Yang Chendong's power was not small. Since he wasn't prepared enough and had overstepped his boundaries, he wouldn't be able to gain anything by staying here. This general only saw that the scenery here was not bad and couldn't help but come here. Since the Ming dynasty has rules, then let's just go back. To everyone's surprise, the magazine king compromised. His attitude was extremely sincere, as if he had really come here casually. After saying this, he was the first to turn and return to the capital, Tuj and the other guards hurriedly following. Soon, they disappeared from everyone's sight, which caught Tang Tong off guard. As one of Wang Lin's confidants, he naturally knew his master's attitude towards Walla. In the past, every time he came to pay tribute, he would give his master a lot of gold and silver. But this time, he didn't bring any gifts, either because he forgot or because of other reasons. This already made his master a little unhappy. This time, Tang Tong came here with the intention of making things difficult for the magazine king and reminding him. But he didn't expect that the magazine king would leave so straightforwardly. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even have the slightest intention of confronting him, which made Tang Tong unable to find a place to say anything. Tang Tong was a little dissatisfied that the matter was resolved so easily. This should have been an opportunity to perform meritorious deeds, but now he missed it. He was unhappy, but he didn't say anything to Tiger's Mane. He only said that if anyone came to the Yang family manor to cause trouble in the future, he should send someone to inform him and he would deal with it. Then, he turned and left with the embroidered uniform guards. After Tiger's Mane saw Tang Tong and the others off, he returned to the manor and reported everything to Yang Chendong in detail. Yang Chendong listened to Tiger's Mane's report with a calm expression. After a while, he nodded and said, "I understand. After this incident, the magazine king probably won't come to the Yang family manor to cause trouble. However, he won't give up so easily. Inform the Immortal Abode and Sky Beyond Sky to be more careful. Tell Yang Si to be more alert. At the same time, send Dao Xiao's second squad over, just in case." "Young Master, now that Dao Xiao's second squad has left, there's only Qiu V's first squad left. If anything happens, your safety," Tiger's Mane said with some worry. "This young master's safety is naturally not an issue. If something really happens, don't I still have you guys? Besides, even if something really does happen, it's not like you don't know this young master's strength. If you want to touch me, who knows if there's anyone in the world who can do it?" Yang Chendong's voice was filled with confidence. With his ability to enter the warehouse at any time, and even have a helicopter appear at any time, anyone who wanted to capture him would have to be willing. Otherwise, even an entire army wouldn't be able to do anything to him. But young master? Although Tiger's Mane was filled with confidence in Yang Chendong, he didn't want to see the young master take any risks. He asked carefully, "Young master, we've already completed our initial preparations in the capital. Much of the work has already begun, but we're still lacking manpower. Do you think it's possible to transfer some people over from Crimson City? This is also for the sake of better future development." Yang Chendong wasn't someone who couldn't listen to other people's opinions. On the contrary, he always believed that there was a limit to a person's wisdom. Only by gathering the wisdom of the masses could many things be done more perfectly. "Okay, we'll do as you say. Transfer a company of Cold Vanguard from Crimson City, as well as the Ghost Shadow Sniper Squad." Yang Chendong naturally had his own considerations for transferring the Ghost Shadow Sniper Squad over. Seeing that it wouldn't be long before the Tuma Castle incident happened, if they didn't have enough strength, they wouldn't be able to perform perfectly in many things. Hearing that he could transfer 100 Cold Vanguard and even the Ghost Shadow Sniper Squad, Tiger's Mane's face lit up with joy. He let out a long sigh of relief and hurriedly agreed, turning around to make arrangements. Back to the competition king. Yangjia village's fruitless return made him extremely annoyed. He originally thought that a small Ming Dynasty rank 5 official would feel honored and open the door to welcome him and treat him as a guest. Didn't people say that the Han people were a nation of etiquette? However, why did Yang Chendong not want to see him at all? Even after knowing that he had appeared, he immediately informed the genie guards. Why did he draw the line between them and be so careful? Was this his careful nature? Or did he feel something? The current Ming Dynasty and Walla's relationship wasn't bad, at least on the surface. As for deep down, although his brother Yes Hen had the intention to swallow up the Ming Dynasty and was even preparing in the dark, what kind of secret matter was that? Even in Walla, very few people knew about it. Could Yang Chendong see that something was wrong? He had a guilty conscience, and everyone he saw was a guilty conscience. This was the competition king's thoughts. It was precisely because the Vara clan was about to make a move that he didn't give Wang Jin any gifts as usual when he came to the Ming Dynasty to pay tribute. Since they were about to become enemies, there was no point in giving anything. Even this time's tribute was to deceive the Ming Dynasty and prepare for the Walla's surprise attack. Currently, the Ming Dynasty seemed to know nothing about this. At the very least, there was no change in how they were received. Even the officials of the Ming Dynasty's Ministry of Rites were chatting and laughing as usual. This wasn't something that could be faked. Everything was normal. Only Yang Chendong's behavior was so unapproachable. The competition king couldn't help but think too much about it. How about this? Take some people to the Shini residence and find out how this Eastern commander is going to deal with it. The competition king felt that he still needed to investigate Yang Chendong and see how he could deal with it. Since he couldn't go to the Yang family village, then he'd go to the Immortal abode. Tua was feeling gloomy. Today's matter had made him lose face, But when he heard the general's orders, he was unable to contain his joy. He didn't have much ability to deal with things peacefully, but when it came to causing trouble, it couldn't be any easier. It was a good opportunity to vent his anger and let the Eastern commander know what the consequences of angering the Walla were. The immortal abode was bustling with people, and business was booming. Even the ordinary tables in the main hall were in short supply. If one wanted to eat here without a membership card or a reservation, they would often have to line up outside to experience the treatment and conditions. Sometimes, when business was booming, even lining up didn't mean anything. Often, when it was time to close, there were still many cases of people not being able to get in line. Even so, there were still many people who flocked to this place like a flock of ducks. They would rather line up, even if they didn't know whether or not they'd be able to get in line. This scene made the other restaurants and inns incredibly envious. However, their financial strength was far from enough. They did not have fresh songs and dances, nor did they have the unique taste of delicious delicacies. They also did not have transparent glass, unique private rooms, and well-trained service staff who were very skilled in dealing with people and had different styles. The hardware and software weren't on the same level. Even when the other restaurants saw how popular the Immortal abode was, they couldn't think of anything else other than envy and jealousy. But today, at noon, the exciting scene they'd been looking forward to for a long time had happened. Someone had actually come to the Immortal abode to cause trouble because of a problem with a table. This made the other restaurants incredibly excited. Even if they couldn't obtain any benefits from seeing the Immortal abode in trouble, it was still enough to comfort them. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.